When a movie character is a genius, I bet you can tell immediately, my highly intelligent viewer. You certainly recognize your own. Unfortunately, not all people have such a high intellect. Just check my low view count. Which is why writers and directors telling the story of a genius of astounding creativity must find a way to turn something as mysterious and unapproachable as genius into something that audiences can clearly see, hear, and understand. What do you usually see in movies and shows about brilliant characters? They do their things and get praise. That's all.
You're genius. You're genius.
Composers and writers merely sit down and outgo musical hits and amazing pages. Bohemian Rhapsody is basically just a montage of this. How did Queen make their songs? What if, bear with me, they just made their songs? Oh, here's $1 billion! Then there's the famous Eureka moment.
Do you happen to know if she's a boyfriend? People don't walk around with a sign on them that says relationship status.
Oh! Watch, I bet you she cries.
Big girls don't cry.
If that guy had said, yeah, she'll cry like a little bitch, would Frankie Valli and the Four Seasons have that song? Take a look at the otherwise excellent epic, The Agony and the Ecstasy. Pope Julius II hires Michelangelo to paint the Sistine Chapel. Michelangelo paints some ordinary religious imagery before changing his mind and leaving for inspiration. Conveniently enough, he gets it by watching. Think of the first cliché that comes to your mind. Exactly. A sunset. It gives him the entire idea for the Sistine Chapel. He pitches it to the Pope and zippity-doo-dah, zippity-yay, you got yourself a Sistine Chapel. Good movie, but terrible representation of a genius because it gives no insight to how his mind works. How differently he thinks, how differently he sees the world, which is what the audience needs. The only film that is right in not showing any insight is Amadeus, because the movie is a biography of the genius Mozart from the point of view of Salieri, the non-genius who desperately wants to be one. He doesn't understand how Mozart creates such perfect music, and it angers him to the point of murder. But how can a filmmaker show a character's creative genius when he needs to? Is that even possible? Fear not, for I have compiled a list of the 4 films that best cinematically represent creative genius. They are Paul Schrader's Mishima, A Life in 4 Chapters, Peter Greenaway's Prospero's Books, Ron Howard's A Beautiful Mind, and Scott Frank's The Queen's Gambit.
But The Queen's Gambit is actually a mini-series.
Yes. Let me tell you now how these films manage to show you the mind of a creative genius. Prospero's book. No, there's no way I'm starting with Prospero's books. I got it. I'll do it from the simplest to the most complicated. Let us start with The Queen's Gambit, likely the best thing Netflix ever made. It's about the stylish fictional chess prodigy Beth Harmon. How do you show that someone is a chess genius without just making her move pieces on the board and having everyone around going mental? By showing what she sees. She can visualize a chessboard on the ceiling. But what makes this visual style special is that Scott Frank doesn't treat it like it's just part of her imagination. She literally sees that board, as we can realize by her having to tear her bed's canopy to give her board some room. And, the best detail, in her final game we can see the pieces reflex in her eyes. Besides being the best game ever made, chess is something difficult and complicated, but her genius gives her an advantage by having her see her own chessboard far away and upside down.
What the
As long as it works. Let's move on to A Beautiful Mind, Ron Howard's Oscar-winning biography of brilliant mathematician John Nash. Hot damn, John Nash! When do you find the time to hit the gym? This man broke the Russian code and revolutionized economics. And he looks like this. What's your excuse? It would have been just another typical biographical drama if it hadn't been for Howard's creative demonstration of his protagonist's genius. The first glimpse of his brilliancy is in this brief moment. He sees patterns in the sun rays through a glass, connects it to patterns in oranges, and then to patterns in an ugly tie.
Have you ever heard of something called apophenia? It's the finding of pattern or meaning where other people don't. Sometimes people find patterns or meaning where there aren't any.
What does that have to do with me?
Which is why Nash becomes a code breaker, but not just any code breaker. One with an infinite attention span whose mind never stops moving. Which is why this is a rare 360 degrees shot that makes sense. His brain highlights pattern after pattern before finally setting on the answer he was looking for. The mind of a genius doesn't see just random shapes. It sees patterns repeating and rearranging themselves. John can look at the stars and differentiate whatever image he wants. But as far as seduction routines go, there is no way she would really see an umbrella after a little finger wagging.
All I really want to do is have intercourse with you as soon as possible.
Movies. Sometimes you are the world's worst teacher. Just to emphasize how great a beautiful mind is at representing John's genius, let's take a look at a deleted scene that, instead of showing something visually creative and unique, just try to shout at you, "Trust me, dude, this guy's a genius." In the film, he gets butthurt after losing a game of Go and decides to invent his own game with blackjack and hookers. In fact, forget the game. He just sets out to make his blackjackless, hookerless game, and how do Academy Award-winning screenwriter Akiva Goldman and Academy Award-winning director Ron Howard set out to show us. John Nash looks at a board intensely. Now he looks at it from another angle. Wow, look at him looking. Now he's looking at it from further up. Now he looks at it while pacing around. Now he's looking at it from yet another angle. Now guess what? Yes, still looking. Okay, now this one is amazing. You'll never believe it. He looks at it at night! After hours and hours of brilliant, intense looking like only a genius can look, zippity-doo-da, zippity-yay, you got yourself a game. And the players immediately agree it's the best game ever. Thank God for the cutting room floor for such garbage. On November 25, 1970, acclaimed Japanese writer Yukio Mishima and 4 workout buddies invaded an army base and tried to convince the soldiers to overthrow the government and give full power to the emperor. Upon obviously failing because, nobody cared for the emperor, Mishima committed seppuku. Of course they made a movie about it, but nobody watched it because, like its title character, it is insane. Mishima, A Life in 4 Chapters, presents his life from his black and white infancy and rise to fame to his normal-looking crazy final day. But there is nothing typical about this biography. Intercut with scenes of his real life are passages from 3 of his novels, all shot with colors as strong as they should be in the mind of a brilliant writer. Are enactments of his writings enough to make this film one of the best representations of creative genius? Yes. The Temple of the Golden Pavilion is about a stutterer, like Mishima was as a child, who can't stand the overwhelming beauty of a temple and sets it on fire. Kyoko's House is about a sadomasochistic love affair that ends in suicide. Runaway Horses is about a group of revolutionaries who fail at overthrowing the government and, you guessed it, commit seppuku. There is no better representation of that cliché, the life and works of, than Mishima, A Life in 4 Chapters, because they are one and the same.
Well, creativity and psychosis often go hand in hand. Genius and madness.
It's as if it was suddenly revealed Agatha Christie committed 800,000 perfectly prepared and covered murders. How didn't we see it coming? Wait! And so we get to Prospero's books. How to even begin? It's based on Shakespeare's comedy, The Tempest, but if you want to know its story, read the book, cause the film won't help you. It follows Prospero, a magician who lives in a magical island with his daughter Miranda. He used to be the Duke of Milan, but was exiled by his brother. Now he uses his magical powers to create a storm and wreck his brother's ship. With the court of Milan on Prospero's island, he finally has the chance to have his long-awaited revenge. But don't get too excited, my vengeance-loving friend. This is a story about forgiveness. But what does Prospero's books even look like? I would show you more of this cornucopia of overwhelming visuals, but I am tired of censoring. The naked people are the spirits controlled by Prospero, and what can I say? Peter Greenaway doesn't think spirits should be dressed, I guess. The 3 previous films were about a chess player, a mathematician and a writer, so you might be wondering why did I include a film about a wizard? Because, as you can see by these peacocks and a pyramid on a cornfield, it's not that simple. You see, it helps if you don't see Prospero as Prospero, but as the writer William Shakespeare himself. The Tempest was the last play he ever wrote, not counting a couple subpar collaborations. So he is presented as an old man at 46 in his study, writing and letting his mind roam free. The non-stop visual overdose we see is Shakespeare's genius, creating one overabundant image after another, featuring dance, music, calligraphy, mime, a whole bunch of nakedness and whatever you call this thing. Prospero's books is the mind of a genius let loose until talent translates all this creative chaos into perfectly readable and understandable poetry.
We are such stuff as dreams are made on. And our little life is rounded with a sleep.
One final thing. The one detail that unites these 4 movies and I consider the single best representation of creative genius is not in the visuals, but in the music. All these movies use minimalistic music to represent their characters' brilliancy. While normal classical music constantly changes, building towards an objective, minimalistic music uses fast repetition of short phrases, changing slightly and slowly in a hypnotic trance, which makes it ideal to represent attention and genius. When John Nash is code-breaking, the music manifests his mind searching and searching for answers as sonic patterns repeating and rearranging themselves. Beth Harmon's theme is equally minimalistic, showing a creative mind flying up and down, left and right, seeking the best possible move on the chessboard. Mishima's music belongs to a powerful, obsessive mind, capable of enormous creativity and a glorious ending. Where did you hear that theme before? The Truman Show. Philip Glass scores The Truman Show. No, not The Truman Show. Well, yes, The Truman Show. Partly. He scores The Truman Show within The Truman Show. But I digress. The music of Prospero's books... Yep, that's how The Tempest is shown. Is the perfect audio equivalent of the visuals. An insane cascade of notes repeating and rearranging themselves in search of greatness and order. Minimalistic music constantly advances in its obsessive repetition until it suddenly stops, because once that brilliancy is found, genius can, for a moment, finally rest.
Hey, that little boy is playing 3 games at once.
Checkmate.
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 Dang.
Thank you for watching. What film do you think shows creative genius the best? Leave a comment. If you enjoyed this video, please like, subscribe and share it. I will see you next time, and this is Movie Wise.